1980 would prove to be a big year for Peanuts when it comes to animation. On February 25th, the special She's a Good Skate Charlie Brown first aired on CBS. This time, Peppermint Patty was the main focus, as she was training for an ice skating contest. Snoopy plays the role of her grumpy coach. The special was an adaptation of the longest storyline ever told in the strip. It also became the most ambitious special Schulz, Mendelsohn, and Melendez made to date. Schulz insisted that Peppermint Patty's skating be executed perfectly. So the animators brought in free skaters to serve as models. One of them was Schultz's daughter, Amy. Director Phil Ramone explained the process. For She's a Good Skate, Charlie Brown, they shot live footage, then sent me rotoscope photos. I used them for the timing. But in the photos, you've got a big adult with long legs. The strides, the push-ups, the turns are different for a little kid with short legs and a big head. Bill Littlejohn animated it, but I did all the timing and the pan moves because the background moved with the characters. They also brought in Jason Saranis to provide Woodstock's whistle for the song O Mino Bonino Caro. Their hard work paid off, as She's a Good Skate Charlie Brown is considered one of the greatest Peanut specials ever made. Although Lee Mendelsohn and Bill Melendez were loyal to Schulz, they didn't work for him exclusively. They often worked on other projects in between specials and movies. One special they made was called The Fantastic Funnies. Released on May 15th, this rarely seen special was a celebration of comic strips both old and new. One of the various cartoonists they interviewed was, of course, Charles Schulz. It also includes a brief animated segment of Snoopy singing Supper Time from the off-Broadway play You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Although not canon to the Peanut specials, the Fantastic Funnies marked the first time the viewer could hear Snoopy's thoughts in animation. The special also marked the animated debut of Garfield, who would go on to star in a series of TV specials that would rival Peanuts in popularity. On May 30th, the movie Bon Voyage Charlie Brown and Don't Come Back was released in theaters. It would be the last Peanuts movie made in Schulz's lifetime. October 24th saw the release of Life as a Circus Charlie Brown. Unlike the previous special, Life as a Circus Charlie Brown told an original story. A circus comes to town, and Snoopy falls in love with a performing dog named Fifi. He then joins the circus, where he becomes a popular star named Hugo the Great. Charlie Brown finds himself missing his dog. This is similar to the movie Snoopy Comes Home, and to a lesser extent, He's Your Dog Charlie Brown. Unlike the movie or the special, Charlie Brown doesn't act like he's happy to see Snoopy when he comes home. In fact, he actually looks mad. Why wouldn't he be happy to see him? Is he mad that Snoopy joined the circus in the first place? A little known fact about Charles Schulz is his fascination with magic. One of his closest friends was Dr. Robert Albo, himself an amateur magician. Over the years, the two exchanged magic tricks. They even co-owned the Palace of Magic shop in San Francisco. Schulz was even a member of the Academy of Magical Arts and an honorary member of the Magic Castle. This led to the next special, It's Magic Charlie Brown. Released on April 28, 1981, It's Magic Charlie Brown features Snoopy checking out a book of magic at the library. He then goes on to perform a magic show where he makes Charlie Brown invisible. At first, Charlie Brown hates being invisible until he learns that he could kick the football while Lucy's holding it, making it the only time he was able to kick the football. Sidney Penny, who provided the voice of Lucy, would play a little girl named Lily in The Big Stuffed Dog, an NBC special about a big Snoopy toy. Someday You'll Find Her, Charlie Brown would premiere on October 30th. Although Charlie Brown is known for his unrequited love for the little red-haired girl, this special focused on him falling in love with a girl he saw in the audience at a football game on TV. He, Linus, Snoopy, and Woodstock go out of their way to find this girl, only to have Linus fall in love with her. Don't worry, Charlie Brown. There's always the little red-haired girl. When Schultz, Mendelsohn, and Melendez first worked on the Charlie Brown Christmas, CBS originally wanted them to make an hour-long special. Lee Mendelsohn successfully talked them down to a half hour. He felt they wouldn't have been able to make an hour-long special due to the time and budget restraints. With 22 specials and 4 movies under their belt, the 3 of them were ready to try their hand with the hour-long format. The result was a Charlie Brown Celebration. Premiering on May 24th, 1982, the special starts off with Charles Schultz doing an intro. This moment alone separates a Charlie Brown Celebration from previous specials. A Charlie Brown Celebration is a collection of short segments, each one adapted from the strip. Is This Goodbye, Charlie Brown would go back to the half-hour format. Premiering on February 23rd, 1983, the special has Linus and Lucy move to a new neighborhood. This was an adaptation of a storyline from the strip. Schroeder actually starts to miss Lucy, indicating he might care about her more than he lets on. On May 16th, the special It's an Adventure Charlie Brown premiered. Like a Charlie Brown Celebration, It's an Adventure Charlie Brown is an hour-long special that contains short segments that were adapted from the strip, though it doesn't have an intro by Charles Schultz. Lee Mendelssohn's son Jason, who was only 4 at the time, provided the voice of Rerun. Jason would go on to voice Peppermint Patty and Marcy in a few specials. He would later help work on the storyboards. For many years, CBS tried to get Charles Schultz to create a Saturday morning show. Schultz was reluctant to do so, for he didn't know if he would have time to work on one. He sure didn't want anyone else to write it. He finally agreed, on the condition that he write the episodes. The result was The Charlie Brown and Snoopy Show. Premiering on September 17th, The Charlie Brown and Snoopy Show followed the anthology format of the hour-long specials. Each episode was divided in 3 segments. Most of them were an adaptation of the strip, but there were a few original stories. The first season had an instrumental theme, while the second season included lyrics that were written and sung by Desiree Goyette. Snoopy's sister Belle made her animated debut in the intro, yet she oddly never appeared in an episode. The Charlie Brown and Snoopy Show would run for 18 episodes before ending on August 3rd, 1986. Why didn't it last longer? As Lee Mendelson explains, we had done 18 shows when Sparky called and said, I don't want to do it anymore. It wasn't that he didn't like the Saturday morning shows. He just didn't want to spend any more time on them, as the series takes a lot more time than the special. So I called the network and told them he doesn't want to do any more, and I can't make them. That's why the series only lasted 18 shows. He was the boss and he made the decisions. The show might have lasted longer if Charles Schulz had been more willing to let other people write for it. Both It's an Adventure Charlie Brown and the Charlie Brown and Snoopy Show were the last time Phil Ramone worked on a Peanuts project. You see, Lee Mendelson and Bill Melendez worked on the first two Garfield specials. Charles Schulz was fine with them doing this, for he knew they needed work in between specials. He even helped Jim Davis draw Garfield standing up for Here Comes Garfield. Then the Garfield specials began to compete for the same awards as the Peanuts specials. Schulz and Davis found this to be problematic. It meant that no matter which special won the award, Lee Mendelson and Bill Melendez were guaranteed a victory. So they were told by Schulz to either work on Peanuts or Garfield. They, of course, chose Peanuts. Phil Ramone would form his new studio, Film Ramone, so he could work on the rest of the Garfield specials. Although Bill Melendez would never again work on a Garfield project, Lee Mendelson would later serve as an executive producer for Garfield and Friends. Charles Schulz was a patriotic man, having proudly served in the Army during World War II. He wanted to create a special that honored the veterans of both World War I and World War II. Bon Voyage Charlie Brown ended with the characters still in France, so he decided that, while trying to go home, they ended up on Omaha Beach. Once there, the characters start to talk about the world wars. Schulz even wanted Linus to recite the poem in Flanders Field. The only problem he had is what to call the special. Schulz came up with the title during a sleepless night in the hospital after a coronary bypass surgery. What Have We Learned, Charlie Brown? Released on Memorial Day, Schulz hoped that it would become a yearly special. Sadly, that wasn't the case. CBS didn't see What Have We Learned, Charlie Brown as commercially viable enough to air every year. Still, it's a great Memorial Day special. It is also the only special to be a continuation. Schulz's patriotism led to the Peanuts characters to be used in the PSA to help fix the Statue of Liberty in 1984. The PSA shows Lucy dressed as the Statue of Liberty and asking for donations to help fix her. As we've seen, Schulz found inspiration for Peanuts specials in surprising places. Whether Nightmare Charlie Brown came about after a trip to Alaska, and It's Magic Charlie Brown from a love of magic. Once, Schulz went to see the movie Flashdance and was inspired to create the musical special It's Flash Beagle Charlie Brown. Released on April 16, 1984, It's Flash Beagle Charlie Brown features some of the best songs by Ed Bogus and Desiree Goyette. The special doesn't have a straightforward narrative, but it's really the songs that sells it. Like She's a Good Skate Charlie Brown, It's Flash Beagle Charlie Brown makes use of rotoscope. Schulz's daughter Jill would serve as a model for Peppermint Patty's aerobics. Maureen Yonhan the lady who served as a dancing double for Jennifer Beals in Flashdance, would model for Snoopy's epic dance. Unlike the movie, she was given credit for the special. Desiree Goyette and Joe Scarberry would sing the title song. In a way, It's Flash Beagle Charlie Brown is the most dated of the Peanuts specials, for the music and clothes all scream 80s. Yet in a way, it is perhaps the best representation of the 80s specials, in that it isn't afraid to be different. Its Flash Beagle Charlie Brown features Stacey Ferguson as the voice of Sally, who is better known as Fergie of Black Eyed Peas. Snoopy's Getting Married Charlie Brown would premiere on March 30th, 1985. Snoopy meets a girl while guarding Peppermint Patty's house and now wants to get married. On November 6th, the hour-long special You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown premiered, an adaptation of the off-Broadway musical. You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown marked the first time the audience could hear Snoopy's thoughts in an official Peanuts special. His voice was provided by Robert Towers, who also played him on stage. For many years, audiences were used to hearing the sounds Bill Melendez made for Snoopy, so hearing Robert Towers' voice was off-putting for some. On New Year's 1986, Happy New Year Charlie Brown premiered. Although Schulz felt it was a mistake to physically show the little red-haired girl in It's Your First Kiss, Charlie Brown, she is shown once again. She has the same design as before and is still named Heather. Since 1959, the Peanuts characters had been appearing in commercials. First the Ford Falcon, then Weber's Bread, Dolly Madison, Cheerios, and Chex Mix. In 1986, the characters started to appear in commercials for MetLife. They would be associated with the company for years to come. On January 29th, 1988, Snoopy the Musical premiered. Like You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, Snoopy the Musical was an adaptation of a stage musical. Once again, audiences got to hear Snoopy's thoughts. This time, he is voiced by Cam Clark, who is best known as the original voice of Leonardo in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Liquid from the Metal Gear games. He would also provide Snoopy's voice for a talking Snoopy toy. As we've seen, Charles Schulz wasn't afraid to try something different with the specials. The final special of the decade was the most ambitious one he, Mendelsohn, and Melendez ever made. Schulz admired how movies like Mary Poppins combined live action with animation, so he decided to make the next special like that. To top it off, Snoopy's brother Spike would be the star. Snoopy and Charlie Brown would have minor roles. Schulz's son Monty was brought in as a co-writer, and his daughter Jill to star, making this special a family project. It would be called It's the Girl in the Red Truck Charlie Brown. Released on September 27th, 1988, it was Schulz's desire that this special would be his magnum opus. Instead, It's the Girl in the Red Truck Charlie Brown would be panned by both fans and critics alike. The main complaint was that the special lacked a story. Others compared it unfavorably to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which premiered earlier. It's the Girl in the Red Truck Charlie Brown would fall into obscurity. Though it may have been the last special of the 80s, It's the Girl in the Red Truck Charlie Brown wasn't the final animation project for Peanuts. On October 21st, This Is America Charlie Brown premiered. It was an 8-part miniseries that covered important events in American history. It was one of the few times adults were used in Peanuts, so adult voice actors were brought in, like Frank Welker, Greg Berger, Hal Smith, and Cam Clark even returned briefly to voice Snoopy. Ordinarily, Schultz wouldn't have allowed adults to be shown, but he felt it was important for kids to be exposed to American history. The 80s had some of the most ambitious projects ever made for Peanuts. Not only did they tell original stories, they allowed us to hear Snoopy's thoughts, explore American history, see an invisible Charlie Brown kick the football, hear Woodstock's amazing whistle, and watch Snoopy dance to an awesome song. We got to see the characters star in hour-long specials, a Saturday morning cartoon, and a mini-series. The special started to use techniques like rotoscope and live action with animation. Schultz, Mendelsohn, Melendez, and their staff really pushed themselves this decade. It was also around this time that VHS of the specials was starting to become available, allowing fans to rewatch their favorites. What is to come in the next decade? Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section what you guys think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.